تفضل. Thanks for telling me. Jazakallah khairan. May Allah guide you. Bismillah. Fadal.
The weather is getting cold, obviously, and people tend to stay home and stuff like that. So, how would you advise people to spend this time?
When they're staying at home?
The winter time, people staying home. The time is short, the days are shorter. How do you get the best out of this winter time?
The question is getting cold outside, without a question. The days are short, the nights are long, and many people stay home. They don't come out as much. So what would you advise, and how would you advise them to spend their time and to get the most out of the winter seasons, etc.? Me personally, of course, there's a difference between winter and summer and spring, of course. But in reality, it's nothing but a matter of heat. Thermals, long johns, underpants, boots, hoodie, scarf, and gloves. Bismillah. If you think about it, if you got to go to work or you need something or you want something, there's nothing more than just taking the necessary means of winter. Just like in the summertime, there's a wardrobe that you wear. You don't wear this thick material in the summer. You make sure that your car has air conditioning, you have fans in your house, you have plenty of cold water. Even, subhanAllah, the foods change in the summer. Whether it's a seasonal fruit, sports, activities. Just look at the non-Muslims. Their whole lifestyle is based off of flexibility. This is summertime, this is wintertime. This is a summer holiday, 4th of July, right? This is a spring holiday, Easter, a fall holiday, Thanksgiving, Halloween, a winter holiday, Christmas, New Year's, etc. Nothing stops and nothing changes. Nothing stops and nothing changes, and they adjust. The city, you look at a city, there are things for when it's a heat wave, when it's a snowstorm, when it's raining, when it's windy, etc. But the city doesn't stop. It doesn't break down. It doesn't crumble. So if these are non-Muslims with regards to their dunya and their holidays and sports, hockey and basketball and summer and track and this and that and baseball, football, how can the Muslim say, well, I'm not going to come to the masjid because it's cold. I'm going to stay home more. Or I'm not going to go to classes because it's cold. Or I'm not going to travel to do dawah because it's cold. I think that's a messed up mentality. And this has nothing to do with the second part of the question of benefiting from one's time and spending the long nights. That's clear. But I'm talking about the mentality that many Muslims do have. If it was the summertime, we would come out. But the winter, people don't come out. Why are you not coming out? Because the days are short, you're still at work? That's one thing. Or just for the sheer fact that it's a little cold and uncomfortable outside. It is only uncomfortable for those who don't dress accordingly and those who don't drive and travel accordingly. Everyone understand this? So if you just stop and look at the dunya does not stop just because it's cold. And there is an invention, there is a patented product, there's something for every element. You go on Amazon, you Google, Zero Below. They have socks, alpaca socks, made for extreme winter conditions. 200 grams of insulation, 12, 15-inch boots. There's something for everything. In other words, the world doesn't what? Don't stop just because it's snowing or cold outside. So for someone who's studying or teaching, he won't teach classes because it's colder than that. I think that's unfortunate. As far as those who are studying and teaching and worshiping Allah and trying to be righteous even when it's cold, how to spend the time. First and foremost is you got to reflect. إِنَّ فِي خَلْقِ السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضِ. Allah says in the creation of the heavens and the earth, the time, the day and the night changing and switching is a sign, is an ayah. Look how short the day is. 4:30, the sun is setting. And in the summertime, 9 o'clock, 9:30. That's a huge difference. Look how long the night is, how peaceful the night is, how still the night is, how clean and fresh the air is in the wintertime. There's no flies, no mosquitoes. It's not congested. Crisp, pristine, alpine air. When it's snowing, when it's cold outside, right? You have to reflect on that. You got to ponder on how Allah created the heavens and the earth. and how he allows the times to change, the times to come, the times to go. The trees. And we mentioned many 5 minutes of fa'idas and khutbahs and just titles of things like this. Red autumn leaves. The slow falling of petals. How leaves wither and crumble, change colors. You got to reflect on that. And Allah gives life to the earth after it has died. The tree is barren. You look outside your window, you see nothing but twigs, right? And then a couple of months later, it's what? Boom, green. And then yellow, then red, then orange. That has to mean something. Iman fluctuates. One day you feel high, inspired, invigorated. Next day you feel low, you feel down. You don't feel motivated to do. It has to mean something. So the first step, if you ask me, is to reflect and ponder on it. Secondly, spending time wisely. Spending time wisely. Alhamdulillah, you get to rest. You pray at night. You make your fajr. You can make your adhkar. All right? Some of the challenges, sisters have to wear hijab. It's hot outside. They're sweating. They have to cover up gloves, niqab. Now it's cool. That has to mean something. Brothers who complain about the Muslims or non-Muslim women not covering and not being dressed, the tabarruj, it's cold. Even though women are going to still wear tight pants. They're still going to wear tight clothes. They're still going to wear boots and this and that. They're still going to show themselves, but it's nothing like them being half naked in the summertime. Take advantage of that. Everyone understand this? وهكذا. So there's always an advantage in the wintertime. Me personally, winter is my favorite season. The shortness of the days and the length of the night is one of the reasons why it's my favorite season. Even though I was born in the summertime. Is that reverse psychology? Allahu alam. Alam, the wintertime has always been my favorite season. And after the wintertime is the fall. I love summer, I love spring, I love all seasons. But my favorites are the winter and the fall. And those are some of the reasons why they're my favorites. Okay? The peacefulness, the calmness, and the length of the nights. All right? Al-Muhim is the believer finds good in any situation. The believer finds good in what? Any situation. And the believer takes whatever pitch is thrown his way. Fastball, curveball, slider, knuckle. Whatever pitch is thrown your way, the good batter does what? He makes something out of it. If he can hit it, home run, RBI, single, double, triple. If he gets hit with the pitch, if he has to bunt, if he gets walked, he makes good. If the pitcher strikes him out, he finds a way of taking it as an advantage. So we have to be mindful of that and take that mentality that all seasons are good. The long days, short nights. The long nights, short days is always a fact. The fajr is 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock, 4 o'clock, 4:30. Resting, sleeping is always a way that the believer can manage. And Allah surely knows best.
The question is, the brother's been locked up. He went to jail. He used to sell drugs. He's got some money outside. When he comes out of jail, it's from selling drugs. It's haram wealth. What can he do to purify that wealth? What does he have to do with that wealth?
Where does it come from? It's from Queens? Local question? Okay, what city?
London.
Tayyip. Question comes from London. With regards to a brother who used to sell drugs. He got locked up. He came home. He still has the stash. He still has the money. What can he do to purify that wealth? Can he even purify it, or does he have to discard it and get rid of it, etc.? Well, it depends. Hold on.
Only funds.
Clear.
He might lead back to.
Clear. Being mindful that that's the only wealth that he has, and if he discards that money, he may be distressed to go back to that lifestyle, etc. Tayyip. Jazakallahu khairan. Was the brother a Muslim before he got locked up or not? If he was a kafir, he was a non-Muslim, Allah guided him in prison or in jail, coming back home, that's one scenario. If he was a Muslim selling drugs and he knew it was wrong, perhaps it's a different scenario. Okay, at the end of the day, Allah Azza wa Jal, He tells us in general regarding the rulings of riba and the wealth that comes from riba. And Allah says that if you make repentance, فَلَكُمْ رُؤُسُ أَمْوَالِكُمْ. You can keep your capital sum. You can keep the money that was originally yours. You make no oppression, nor will you be oppressed. Surah Al-Baqarah. So with that being said, perhaps if the brother was a non-Muslim and he came back home and the money, even though it was from haram wealth, perhaps it would be permissible for him to keep. He didn't know it was haram, he was a kafir, or if he knew it was wrong culturally in society, but he wasn't a Muslim. Perhaps one may say that. And someone else may come and say, no, the wealth is khabith. It's filthy money, it's dirty money. And that drug money, it came at the expense of a housewife turning into a whore. That money came at the expense of a working family man being reduced to worse than a dog. You ever see someone strung out on drugs, huh? Crack cocaine or heroin, strung out. He'll steal from his children. He'll do whatever he can just to get more drugs. A pure, clean, beautiful housewife will turn into the filthiest, foulest whore in the street. And she'll literally have sex with a dog. We're not making no exaggerations. I'm sorry if there are young people watching, parental advisory, whatever the case may be. I'm telling you real life stories. And which is a woman who will literally do sexual acts with a dog in a crack house just to get a few rocks of crack. All that money that you got came from the suffering of those people. Your comfortability came from the destruction of someone else's life. That's a little boy that was playing softball and baseball, and then his father went to jail for 10 years, or his father was killed. And the people, they always reflect on drugs, and they talk about drugs and what drugs do to drug addicts and how it destroyed so many lives, as I just said. But people don't realize that the game, the drug game, it destroyed people that were sellers of drugs because of money, fast money, greed, lack of loyalty. How many people died and were shot in the crack epidemic in the mid-'80s, in the early '90s? All over America, especially in the east, on the East Coast, Northeast, all over, wherever you go. Detroit, California, wherever you go. But Philly, New York, Jersey, Delaware, how many people were shot and killed? How many people were locked up for 10 years, 15 years, 20 years, 7 years? That's 7 years of no father. That's 10 years of no husband. That's someone whose name is Ahmad, or Tariq Ahmad is his name. He comes from a Muslim family. Because his father was locked up during all of that time, he doesn't practice Islam anymore, and he has an Arab name. It's a reality. So drugs are evil. And only Allah knows what drugs have done to people's communities. Nah? Where do these drugs come from? How are they made? How do they find their way into America? Who's providing the people with drugs and guns? We're not here to discuss all of that. What's important is drugs are evil. And anyone who has ever dealt with drugs, taken drugs, sold drugs, or seen people take them or sell them or fight over them, he knows that it's nothing but evil. And there's no good that can come out of it. Everyone understand this? And many of us to this day, we're living in light of the crack attack of the 90s and 80s. To this day, we didn't have parents or crack babies, people that weren't nourished properly, households that are broken, the divorce rate, single-parent homes, violence. People want to be gangsters, want to be tough. He's never picked up a gun a day in his life, and he loses his life. He's never sold drugs a day in his life, and he wants to be a drug dealer. Everyone understand this? He doesn't understand anything about being a businessman. He's just on a corner for the rest of his life, selling nicks and dimes, wasting his life. And then we can go on and on and on, the stories of drugs and how evil drugs are, and that there's nothing but a dead end at the end of the road of drugs. So it's unfortunate. So with all of that being said, and I don't want to keep ranting and going on, but we have to know this, and we have to talk about this. And there are many of us who are oblivious to this. I'm sure 100% that there are many people, and I'm not saying this as a racial slur or being a nationalist or anything, but this is a reality. Many people that come from overseas and they migrate to America, I'm sure that many of them, if not most of them, are oblivious to what happened to the inner city people, what happened to the black communities, how drug was poured in systematically given to the poor people in those neighborhoods, and how the people in 2018 are still suffering from the 80s. They're oblivious to that. Why are they so poor? Why are they so split up, disunified? Why don't they have anything? That's easy for you to say. You came from overseas. You came with a visa. You came with debt. You came with money. You don't know nothing about crack vials, needles, and the playground. You don't know nothing about going to the schoolyard and see red and blue tops all over the place. You know what a crackhead is? A crack whore is? You don't know about getting shot, people shooting at you, carrying guns. You don't know anything about that, how rough it is. Somebody comes home from jail. He wants to be righteous. Can't get a job. No one wants to hire you. You got a record? Sorry. A felony? Sorry. What is he going to do? How is he going to eat? The system is made to keep you beneath. Why do you have to put that? You don't know anything about that. You don't have a clue. You don't have an idea. And unfortunately, many people don't even care. They don't even what? They don't even care until they're victimized. Until it happens to them, until their son or their daughter. Then, oh, help me, Sheikh, Imam, help me. So, yani, we could talk about this for a very long time, the ins and outs of drugs and the evils of drugs and what it does to a human being. So from that aspect, when we say that money is dirty and you should discard it, don't give it a sadaqah, get rid of the money. Get rid of it. Put it in some type of cause that isn't charitable and get rid of it. And Allah Azza wa Jalla, without a doubt, if you leave off something for the sake of Allah, Allah will give you better. As far as if it's a necessity and it's a must, as I said, you come home from jail, no one wants to hire you, there's nothing that you can do, then take the money, the least amount that you can possibly take. Take barely enough to survive until you find some type of better employment. And if you have to keep taking that money, however, how much money it may be, then do it hating it and knowing that it's a necessity. And that's the only thing that I want to say is for the people to realize is that the glamorous lifestyle of being a drug dealer or a gangster or a mobster or in the mafia or this or that, the glamorous lifestyle, Scarface, the glamorous lifestyle is going to come with suffering. Suffering for you and suffering for the people whom made you what you are. Everyone understand this? And it starts off as a good story. I sold drugs because I didn't have a choice. I had to survive. Maybe that's the truth. But then it's an issue of luxury. And it's an issue of comfort. And it's an issue of having money, power, control. And before you know it, you're the crackhead. You're the heroin addict. You're eating the dog food. You don't even realize that you're addicted to the money. And you're addicted to the killing. And you're addicted to the fahisha that comes with that lifestyle. Everyone understand this? And you can't sleep at night. And you're looking over your back. You can't trust your closest friend, your closest companion. And no one wants to be with you except because of the money that you have and the fear that you bring and the reputation you have. What type of lifestyle is that? Seriously. You're getting locked up for 20 years, 10 years, being in jail, away from your family, away from food and drink that you want to have, away from women, living in a jail for years out of your life. And your daughter is lost. Your son is lost. Your wife is lost. What type of lifestyle is that? It's a horrible lifestyle to have. So drugs are evil, all right? And when we say drugs are evil, we're not just talking about petty drug dealers. Huh? Call it conspiracy theory, whatever you want to call it. We're talking about anyone involved in the chain of narration. The drug lords, the politicians, the evil, corrupt officials that bring in the drugs, the people that make the laws against guns and drugs. Someone goes to jail for 10 years. But of another race, he will only get a year and a half, if that. That's unfair. Hanging people, unfair trials. That's not right. You're destroying, you're not making anything better. He'll get the lesson. You're not making anything better. Coming home, there's no program. Can't get a job. No one wants to hire him. That's not making anything what? You're not making anything better. You're increasing the cycle, going back to drugs. And the same applies to the Muslims. And I would say, from the most appalling things that you'll find is the huge, gross majority of revert Muslims who are in jail. Or those who are even born Muslim. You may find some masjids, certain communities and races, 90%, 80%. You line up 10 brothers, 9 brothers have been in jail. And there isn't nothing that's structured and formally set up for rehabilitation. That is utterly appalling. The majority of your jama'ah, people who went to jail, and there's nothing formally set up. Of course, their brothers are going to help out. This brother has a job. He has a contract, but there's nothing what? Formally. And of all the lectures and the classes and telelinks and the ulama and this and that and this, and there is nothing on the topic. Don't you find that strange and weird, Yahi? Something is seriously wrong. Let's talk about drugs for a month, for a year. Let's talk about crime. Let's talk about gun violence. I just buried my nephew, 14 years old, killed in the street, shot. This is something that we need to talk about in our communities. Speak on it, talk about it, warn from it. Locally and foreign. Conferences, let the people overseas talk about drug violence and single parent homes. This is real. It's real. So yani, that's a long saga in itself. Al-Muhim, drugs are evil. If you're doing drugs, try to get help. If you're selling drugs, get rid of it before they get rid of you. That's my advice, and with Allah is all success.
Initials O.S. from Colombia, M.O. Missouri. Is it okay for one to start memorizing the Quran, even though your pronunciation some Arabic letters may not be best or not correct.
Question comes from Columbia, Missouri. With regards to, is it okay to start memorizing the Quran even though your tajweed isn't the best? Your pronunciation isn't the best. I would say only memorize the mandatory parts of the Quran. Surah Al-Fatiha and Surah Al-Ikhlas. That's it. Once you have the things that you need for your prayer, you have to learn the basic rules of tajweed. Because you don't want to start memorizing the Quran and you're not implementing the obligatory command to recite it properly and beautifully. Secondly is, when you memorize something incorrectly from the get-go, and then later on you learn the proper way of saying it and reciting it, it is hard, if not sometimes impossible, to say it properly. How many students do I have in which I suffer from they were taught incorrectly how to read, and I'm fighting them to read it the right way? So sometimes it's easier to teach someone from scratch than to break someone down and put them back together. So if you don't need to memorize, don't memorize until you learn the basics of tajweed. And it's not that difficult, wallahi, to watch a YouTube video. You can watch a tutorial online. You can learn tajweed just watching videos, by listening, trying. And then eventually you find a teacher, a brother or a sister in your local place, even if it was once a year. If you only had the ability to travel to this city once a year, that's better than what? It's better than nothing. And Allah knows best.
Initials F. Ali, London, UK. Assalamu alaikum, Sheikh. What's the ruling on snitching? Plus, unrelated question, what's your thought on speaking slang?
Tayyip. Question comes from London, UK, right? What's the ruling on snitching? And what is your thought or your thoughts or your view on speaking slang? As far as snitching, then that's a very long discussion. And we have different dimensions. We have the Islamic dimensions, and we have the cultural dimensions. All right? And oftentimes we have confusion of terminology. There lies no doubt in the culture, there's a huge difference between informing, telling the authorities, fighting against crime, and you snitching. Sometimes the word snitching is used where I come from. I'm not from London, where I'm from, Philadelphia. Sometimes we mention he's a snitch, he's a rat, meaning he himself was involved in the crime. He was doing the crime too. He was taking the money. He was raping people. He was shooting people. He was robbing banks too. And then when the authorities ran down on him and threatened him with, I say what? Hockey numbers. Understand that? 20, 30, 40 years, life in prison. The first thing he did was, is this on? Everyone understand this? It's a huge difference between the two. All right, whatever cultural reference you want to mention. Snitching, ratting, he's a stool pigeon, a stoolie, singing like a bird. Those who know, know, and those who what? Don't know, don't need to know. Whatever cultural reference is used is a difference. And that is a means of major shame and lack of honor. And unfortunately, and I'm going to speak the truth, inshallah, alhamdulillah for Islam, and Islam wipes away all sins. Well, alhamdulillah. But the bottom line, the reality, there are many brothers who accepted Islam, and they talk about people, and they do this, and they do that, and they are rats, quote unquote, snitches. And it's not about jahili in Islam, it's about honor. You lived dishonorably. You got out of jail dishonorably. Even though they say there's no honor among thieves, but you get the point I'm trying to make. You were in the crime. And then you told on your friends. You told on your brother. You ratted. You snitched to take yourself out of the hot seat and have him take the fall. That's not right. In the deen or the dunya, that's not right. And you come to Islam and you don't seek knowledge. You don't purify yourself. You think that rat characteristic is just going to vanish. You think it's going to go away? You think it's not going to carry over too? You're going to have the same mentality of dishonor and shame and filth. How you talk about people and backstab people and spread kalam and make namima. It's the same culture. Everybody understand this? You do the same thing. But because you're jealous or you're not with this person, now you're going to, yeah, Sheikh, fulan, such and such and such and such and such and such. Same thing, just in a different robe. So there's no respect for someone who does that. as far as someone who isn't involved in crime, we're talking about culturally now, and they tell and they inform the police, sometimes they're called snitches too. But I don't think they're called rats. I may be mistaken, but I don't think they're what? They get the same what? It's not the same. And the level of hatred and violence shown to them isn't the what? Isn't the same. It's total different culture now. Intimidating the witness is one thing. Threatening the witness is one thing. Buying off and bribing the witness is what? That's not the same as someone who's a caught red-handed criminal. And then he rats and he tells and he snitches. And he wears a wiretap and so on. He gives information to the people. And he himself is a greedy, fat rat himself. Taking the haram wealth. But he doesn't want to bear any of the consequences that come from it. There's a huge difference between the two. Everyone understand this or not? As far as Islamically, then the Prophet ﷺ, he tells us, مَنْ رَأَ مِنْكُمْ مُنْكَرًا فَلْيُغَيِّرْهُ بِيَدِهِ. If you see an evil, then change it with your hands. If you can't change it with your hands, speak out against it with your tongue. If you can't speak out against it with your tongue because of a mafsada that's bigger than the maslaha, then at least hate it in your heart. So Allah says, كُنْتُمْ خَيْرَ أُمَّةٍ أُخْرِجَتْ لِلنَّاسِ. You're the best nation arisen from man for man. And because you do what? تَأْمُرُونَ بِالْمَعْرُوفِ وَتَنْهَوْنَ عَنِ الْمُنْكَرِ وَتُؤْمِنُونَ بِاللَّهِ. You enjoy the good, you forbid the evil, and you believe in Allah Azza wa Jalla. But even that, I humbly feel, goes back to what I previously mentioned, is that you're enjoying the good and you forbid the evil, and you yourself are not what? Involved in it. You're righteous and pious. And you say, don't do this. Something is seriously wrong. I need to contact someone to change this evil. But me, myself, I live what? Clean. This is a huge difference now. Okay, and this is why one of the worst things in the urban culture is for a person to be a hypocritical police officer, a crooked cop. You wear a badge, you have a gun, you have a nightstick, you tell the people this, you smile, you hug babies, you speak to old ladies walking to church, and you take money under the table. And then when the money runs low, or when you need a quota to fill, you run down on a local drug dealer. Or you run down on a local car thief. But you wear the badge and you have honor. But there is no honor. That's filthy. That's not the same as a police officer that's what? Straight. A police officer that's upfront and honest. Even among criminals, the amount of respect that they have is like night and day. Am I making this up? They may not like the police officer, but they'll respect him. They'll respect him for being an honest cop. As far as dirty cops, they catch people, they plant evidence, they throw drugs on them, they throw a gun on you. No one likes them and no one respects them. So there's a huge difference between enjoying the good, forbidding the evil, coming down against crime, stopping the evil, reporting the munkar to someone who has a greater ability to change it, and you being a hypocritical snitch. That's my humble opinion with regards to that. So sometimes snitching is enjoying the good and forbidding evil. Sometimes telling someone, a parent, a leader, hey, listen, man, you got to stop that. You got to change that. He's doing this. If that's called snitching culturally, then who cares about the culture? If it's about kitab and sunnah. But the bigger, deeper point that I'm trying to get to is do not be hypocritical. Everyone understand that? Don't be what? Don't be hypocritical. As far as what's the ruling on speaking slang, then my thoughts on speaking slang, there's nothing wrong with speaking slang. What's the problem? There's no hadith saying that you have to speak proper English. As long as it isn't foul, it isn't obscene, as long as it's not kufr or shirk or bid'ah, as long as no disobedience to Allah, say whatever you want to say. And this is once more a means of hypocrisy, not necessarily from the questioner, but the concept. People who think that everything from overseas to the Middle East is holy and sacred and proper. And everything in your urban community or suburban community is bad and wrong and it has to be changed. The ulama of Islam who come from Saudi, Mecca, Medina, Yemen, when they sit among each other, they speak what? They talk comfortably. They talk normally. You're sitting in a sheikh's house and you're talking Fusha with him. He gets a phone call. The sheikh will intentionally speak the deepest Saudi slang for you not to understand what he's saying on the phone. You understand this? This is well known. Well known. Well known. There's nothing wrong with that as long as it isn't obscene. As long as it isn't a means of disobeying Allah, there's nothing wrong with speaking slang. Rather, there may be a time or situation in which it's recommended to speak it, if the people only understand that. There may be a time in which it is obligatory if you have to convey the message. But speaking slang in a sitting or talking to your friend, yo, man, see what I'm saying? You know what I mean? right? That's one thing. That's not the same as me speaking on a minbar. That's not the same as me giving an address to people. And it doesn't mean that you have to do that in a professional setting. Everyone understand? It's to speak professionally. You don't have to try to speak like another race. Just speak professionally. But if you're talking like, yo, yeah, I mean, we want people to be robots. Everyone understand? You want people to be what, call it? Robotic? That's not the culture of the people. Huh? So we have to be mindful of these things. What's important is be real and be true to who you are. Do you, as long as it's not against the Quran and the Sunnah. Every people, every race, every nation, they have their own culture, their food, their dress, their clothing, etc. Just be you. But don't make the halal haram. And don't say that one person's culture is more holy than another's. It's dangerous. And Allah surely knows best. Inshallah, we'll stop here tonight. Jazakumullah khairan. Sallallahu alaihi wa sallam wa barak ala abdihi wa rasulihi nabiyina Muhammad.